I had coffee with a mentor of mine who's also a fundraising consultant. But she said, I know this organization that's looking for someone to run a capital campaign. They're a great organization. Would you be interested? And we started talking to them. I started talking to them. And we started talking about what the position might look like and their budget. It was quite a bit less than what I was making. Yeah, 2 young kids. That doesn't work for me. But Lori, my mentor, and I were talking, and I said, well, what if I did it as a consultant? And what if I could ask for working from home? Because as a consultant, you work from, wherever, you choose your own hours. What would that look like? And do I have the audacity to ask for that? Because up until that point in my career, we're always cap in hand asking for jobs, right? Oh, please hire me. We run through or jump through hoops trying to get the jobs. Never had I been in a position where I could be like, let me create this opportunity. So we did. I did some research and I asked them, I said, okay, your budget's 100 as an employee, but typically the costs of benefits and taxes and all that is almost 25%. So I said, $125,000 a year, 3 days a week as a consultant. And they said yes.
Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week, we learned all about fractional fundraising from Cindy Wagman. This week, she's sharing with us how she became a fractional fundraiser and how she's now helping fundraisers and nonprofits around the world adopt this exciting model. Let's jump back into the discussion. Tell us a little bit about your network and other resources that you have for fundraisers who want to pursue this type of work.
So what I discovered is there's a win-win-win model in when I mentioned before, I was trying to figure out how to grow my business. And instead of bringing people in-house, it was actually better for them to be self-employed. And what I mean is I didn't have to cover my overhead or anything like that. They could earn more off the bat working directly with the organizations. It allowed me to scale my business with less risk. They pay me a training fee, and we could help more organizations. So I created this network, and I have an academy where I train fundraisers. They have to be experienced fundraising generalists. That's the criteria. They have to apply. Not anyone can join. But they come so they can enroll in my program, and I teach them the business side of things. So I teach them step by step, all the things to set up and run and get fully booked as a fractional fundraiser. How many clients you need, what to charge, sample contracts, how to do discovery calls, sales calls, presenting to boards, doing everything I've stress tested over the years and teach that. So that's the academy piece. So if there's fundraisers who really, it's best for, again, experienced fundraisers who are kind of either burnt out or they feel like they've hit a bit of a glass ceiling in their careers and they want to make a little bit more money and maybe they want to consult, but they don't want the risk of consulting. This I call it the least risky way to become a fundraising consultant. So you need 3 clients. That's it. And they're 12-month contracts. It's a retainer model. So the money comes in every month. It's really a soft launch to a consulting business. Sometimes people stay doing this for a number of years because it's very comfortable. It allows them to work with really cool small organizations where, in the market, they would only be able to work. The only organizations that could afford them are the big organizations. Maybe that doesn't feel aligned with their values or not as interesting. So it's a really great opportunity for fundraisers who are kind of feeling like a change and want to do something a little bit different. And then for organizations, they can find fractional fundraisers through our network. So we have certified fractional fundraisers, and they're all listed. Anyone who wants to be from our network, who wants to be listed on our website, they are. So organizations can come and look through and just, reach out to some of them or fill out an intake form in my website, and I will personally match the organization with one of our fractional fundraisers who has capacity to do the work. So it's kind of like a little hub for both sides of the equation.
So if I'm thinking about doing this, probably the first, and I hear you say this is a soft landing for people entering into the consulting world. I think the anxiety point for a lot of people is, well, how long is it going to take me to find enough work to justify,
Mm-hmm.
leaving the job I have? I mean, I realize you've got some secret sauce going on here, but on average, like when you're looking at your people, how long does it take them to get fully booked?
So it depends, obviously, but I can tell you a couple things. So a lot of people come in still working full time, and they'll get their first client and work full time and a half, or like full time plus one client. And that's great because it's stable and you're making quite a bit more income. So you can save a lot more and stuff like that. And then they'll leave their job when they get their second client, which usually replaces by that time is replacing their full-time salary. And then the third client, if they want one, is gravy. I would say on average, people find their first client within 2 to 4 months of joining our program. Um, Sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little faster. But that's generally speaking. And then the second client comes quite a bit faster because all the work that they're doing in terms of networking and business development, that's a slow build. But once it happens, it's a lot faster to keep that momentum. So yeah.
Gotcha. So beyond the adding clients and business development, what are the biggest challenges for a new fractional fundraiser to overcome?
The biggest one by far is owning their expertise. So, what happens is when we get working in organizations and they're like, oh, you're actually doing the work and I don't have to think about it, that they're like, well, what about this? Or can you do this? And the reason fractional fundraising works so well is because there is that expertise and focus. So, organizations are not trying to do all the things, they're trying to do the most significant things in their fundraising. But inevitably, scope creep comes up, right? So, oh, can you also do this? Or we have this opportunity to do an event, or what have you. And so most fractional fundraisers at some point struggle with saying, no, you hired me as the expert. Yes, I'm going to do the day to day, but as the expert, I'm putting my expert hat on and I'm telling you that right now, that's not a good use of my time. And this is where it benefits both the organization and the fundraiser, because this is what causes burnout and it's what wastes a lot of time in organizations. So that's what most people, I think, struggle with at least once.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I know, and we talked about this a little bit before the show started, that one of the barriers that fundraisers in the US can sometimes face is I think I learned when we were first interacting that there's like 47 out of the 50 states have registration requirements for fundraisers.
Mhm.
Do you hear stories of fractional fundraisers addressing those challenges in any ways here in the States?
A little bit, yes. I'm not a lawyer and they're not lawyers, so I don't want to give advice. But to your point, there's 47 different legislations. So my advice is to consult with a lawyer and understand. So some people prefer to just work locally, not just in the States. I have people in Canada just because they want to work in the same community as their clients. Um, some fractional fundraisers will only work in like one or two states. Um, it also depends, I think, if the organization is fundraising locally or nationally as well. So that is definitely a consideration or something to navigate with a lawyer. There are very expensive ways to navigate that, and I think some less expensive ways. But it definitely also, I think, requires looking at what the local legislation says, because sometimes it's not so clear, or sometimes it varies from place to place. And so you might not require the license or registration, or you might, depending on where you are. So it is, yes, something that a lawyer would be best suited to answer. But all I know is that it varies state to state.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Academy. Are you a nonprofit leader who's new to fundraising? Are you feeling crushed by your fundraising goals and not sure how to find success? My online class, crafted from my 25 years of experience and more than 5,000 donor meetings, Abundant Vision Academy will give you the confidence and understanding you need to start building relationships with donors and having gift discussions in just 110 minutes. You'll get 14 videos covering all the topics you need to find success in fundraising. You can take it at your own pace and can watch as many times as you'd like. This is one of the best deals in fundraising continuing education you can get today. To make sure you get off to a strong start in 2024, I'm offering a 50% discount to anyone signing up for my course this spring. That's a $375 value. Enter the coupon code SPRING2024 at checkout to claim your 50% discount. That's spring 2024. Head on over to thomas-dauber-s-school.teachable.com and click on Abundant Vision Academy to get your discount today. The link is in the podcast description. Yeah. Now, I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing, Cindy, what percentage of your students are from the States versus Canada?
That is a great question. And off the top of my head, I want to say about 25% are in the States right now.
Okay. So you're still seeing a good bit of folks come through that. So your comment was great, because I was telling you before, like, I was reviewing our laws here in Ohio, and it really seems to be targeting folks that are actually collecting money. And as a major gift officer, I just don't tend to collect money. I mean, because I give people pledge forms, maybe I'll collect a pledge form, but very rarely did I ever find myself in a position where I'm collecting a $25,000 check or that sort of thing.
Yeah, no fractional fundraiser that I know is actively collecting money. I think there's some states where soliciting donations might be part of their regulations, but again, I don't think I'm not the best person to specifically say. Yeah,
that's okay. That's all right. So I know there was a point in your life where you said, I'm done being a nonprofit employee. I want to work for myself. Can you talk about that experience a little bit? What brought you to that point, and what challenges did you face in your first year as a consultant?
Okay. I have a very unique story, kind of unique in the same way that I chose to be a fundraiser when I was in my early 20s. Okay. I was on mat leave with my second kid, and in Canada, we get long mat leaves. So I think it was about 4 months in, and I had coffee with a mentor of mine who's also a fundraising consultant. And I wasn't really looking for a new job, but she said, "Oh, I know this organization that's looking for someone to run a capital campaign. They're a great organization. Would you be interested?" I said, "I'm not really looking, but tell me more," just out of curiosity. So she told me it's a really cool organization. It's a documentary film festival and cinema. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And we started talking to them. I started talking to them. And we started talking about what the position might look like and their budget. And it was quite a bit less than what I was making. I talk about this on stages, so I can tell you the numbers. I think I was earning about 112,000 at my full-time job, and I think their budget was about 100,000. I was like, yeah, 2 young kids. That doesn't work for me. But Lori, my mentor, and I were talking, and we said, well, what if I did it as a consultant? And what if I could ask for working from home? Because as a consultant, you work from, wherever, you choose your own hours. What would that look like? And like, do I have the audacity to ask for that? Because up until that point in my career, we're always like cap in hand asking for jobs, right? Oh, please hire me. We run through or jump through hoops trying to get the jobs. Never had I been in a position where I could be like, let me create this opportunity. So we did. I did some research. I consulted with Lori, my mentor, and I asked them, I said, okay, your budget's 100 as an employee, but typically the costs of benefits and taxes and all that is almost 25%. So I said, like 125,000 a year, 3 days a week as a consultant. And they said yes. And it was a 2-year contract. So I started consulting with a lot of stability, which I needed at the time because, as I said, I had like a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old. I ended up starting, I think my son was closer to 7 or 8 months when I started my contract. But, I wasn't about to leave a very stable job for much less than that. So that's how I started. And I took a few months just working 3 days a week, and it was great. And then I am ambitious, and I was like, okay, I'm building a business. And so in the end, that contract extended and then wound down very slowly over a couple of years. So it in total lasted 5 years. And during that time, I built my team. We found more contracts. We refined our offerings and all of that good stuff. So, yeah.
That's a great story. That's wonderful. So if you could go back and talk to that younger version of yourself when you were just starting out as a consultant, what advice would you have for her?
Oh my goodness. I just posted this on LinkedIn asking people for like in 10 words or less what they wish they knew when they started. So I have like 20 responses. But for me personally, I always knew I wanted to work with small organizations. And so I felt like I had to lower my prices. And I would have increased them a lot sooner than I did. And I would have, my dream at the time, early in those days when I was building this like agency model, we had an office downtown Toronto. I'm not sure if that was my dream or if that was like what I thought my dream should be. Now I have no employees. I work out of my house. I have very flexible hours. It's so much better for me right now. So at the time, it was great, but I feel like really taking the time to think intentionally about what I wanted as opposed to what I thought success looked like.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Now, my goal for every episode is that my listeners would get at least one bit of valuable advice that would help them become better fundraisers. And given your experiences and your many interactions with nonprofit leaders, executive directors, what would you say is the number one thing that fundraisers should stop doing? And what would be the number one thing they should start doing?
Easy. I love this question. Stop making assumptions about people's capacity. Almost 100% of the time, I've seen fundraisers and volunteers and board members and other staff be so off with people's capacity. We overestimate what we think are high net worth individuals. So we think, oh, they're a high net worth individual. They've have unlimited resources. And we ask and we ask and we need to find those people. And they don't have the capacity, or they're not as generous as we think they are. Meanwhile, we overlook all the other people. We assume all these people have low capacity, and that is absolutely not the case. The most generous, significant contributions I've raised 7-figure gifts from people you've never heard of. And so that's my stop. Stop making assumptions about people's capacity. If you're not already, start being really curious. Curiosity, I believe, is the number one quality of a great fundraiser. Constantly be curious, asking questions, learning about people, about what drives them, about the organization, about the staff, what drives them. The more curious you can be, the more you can find connection and relevancy and even authentic relationships. And to me, that has been what has allowed me to be a good fundraiser.
That's great advice. Wow. Thank you so much, Cindy. It's wonderful having you on. I do have one other question about the fractional fundraising model, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
As you look across your students, the folks that are in your network and doing well, what percentage of the work, and I'm a major gift fundraising consultant, what percentage of the work are they doing that is major gift oriented versus running annual campaigns or running events or doing the other types of fundraising?
It really varies by organization. Yeah, it really, really varies. It really depends on what you're walking into. Like if they have some individual donors, if they have some existing major gifts. I would say typically, though, a lot of small organizations are not starting with major gifts. So usually it's a bunch of the other stuff.
That makes a lot of sense.
But not 100% of the time. There are exceptions for sure.
Wow. Well, we've zoomed through our questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about what you're doing, or if our audience wants to learn more about fractional fundraising, how can they find you?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can find me at fractionalfundraising.co, or at cindywagman.com. If you are a fundraiser who's curious and this has piqued your interest and you're like, oh, maybe I could be a fractional fundraising consultant, please do reach out. I launch the academy once a year. So this year it's April, May, and we have a wait list. You can get on there. It is, I love it. I love it because I see other fundraisers who find work-life balance, who have more control over their time. And so I am an evangelist. I will talk about this till the cows come home because I think it's great. And I think the Academy has a unique role or service in that it helps people figure things out really quickly. Can you do it on your own? Sure, I did, right? That's how I started. But you can learn from all of my lessons. If you're an organization, fractional executives, whether they're fundraisers or other types of executives, CMO, CFO, HR, like it's such a gift to our sector that I think is really struggling right now in terms of staffing. So there are more creative ways that you can fill those functions in your organization with your tight budget and access high levels of expertise. So I encourage people to just think outside the box.
Well, Cindy, thanks again for being on the show. And thanks again for the work that you're doing, because I really do feel like you're a force for good, both in empowering fundraisers, but also in helping out the little guys that may not be able to afford those high-powered fundraisers. So keep up the great work. Please stay in touch. Just wonderful to have you on today.
Thank you so much. It is truly my privilege, and I thank you for forwarding or continuing this conversation.
As always, I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together toward major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.